It is Friday, March 6th, 2020. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And it was a very fun get your ass kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Friday. Doing a lot of stuff from the stand-up position this time around. Not as much on the ground, but we covered a little bit of stuff on the ground too. I've said it a million times on this show that, 90% of the fights that you may get into will probably end up on the ground. However, almost 100% of them start standing. So you got to work your stand-up game. So yeah, that's exactly what we did today. And one of the things I really liked, it was we were doing like an osotogari foot sweep kind of thing, or sweep, or throw. Actually, it's more hip. That one's actually a hip throw. Osotogari is a hip throw. Anyway, we were doing that, and we did one where, like, if you try the hip throw, and for whatever reason your opponent is like able to keep their hips back from you, that's the opportunity to get on their inside and rotate inward and put them into a standing armbar. And I like that. I like that a lot. I don't know what it was about the movement, but I seem to fit into it pretty well. And I've had people try that one on me before, and I tend to stack and then address one of the feet to get around the guard. But yeah, altogether, I would say it was a pretty productive class. We did a little bit of a game of tag, and I was not terribly into that one, honestly, just because my hip is still messing with me, and so it's bad enough that I was getting thrown on my hip, but doing a lot of lateral movement on it it's not exactly. It doesn't feel good yet. It doesn't feel good. Anyway, I keep having like one or two points where I experience some sort of pain with regard to this injury, and like one of them is doing lateral movements, so like doing side shuffles or any kind of hip throw where I'm actually impacting on it or getting thrown on it. And a few others, like if somebody is forcing down on my left leg, from kind of stacking me, I have a little bit of pain there with it. But when I do a somersault, both when I can feel my leg being pulled over to one side and when I land on it, it's just no bueno, man. I gotta wait a little bit before I go, jumping up and down on it. It's not quite ready yet. But other than that, like I said, it was a productive class. I almost got this one guy in an armbar, and I'm not even going to reveal his rank because I'm like so stoked about it because he's higher than me. But anyway, I always keep in mind that we're not going to either one of our like full potential, and so I'm sure that he had half a dozen opportunities to put me into some really bad shit and let it go just because he was moving slower or, not putting a whole lot of injury and energy into it. Injury. Freudian slip. Yeah. I mean, I've got at least, 2 injuries that I'm tending now. And, yeah. So, altogether it was pretty cool, but I almost got him in an arm triangle. And I'm pretty stoked about that. It's one of those things where I actually kind of snuck up on him with it. Although I made one mistake that I really should have captured his right hip a little better and sprawled out a little bit more on my right side just to prevent him from trying to roll into me. And if I would have kind of delayed where I was clenching it just a little bit more than I did, like if I waited until he got further into it before I started clenching down, I probably would have gotten it. I mean, I had his hips well positioned away from me, but he was rolled in a certain position where I couldn't get my head in the right position, and by the time I could, he was already out of that danger zone where I could actually put the clinch on him. But I got really close. I really close. Close enough that, I had my hands clasped, and I had the perfect spot to be in with regard to an arm triangle for just one moment, and he slipped out of it. But he's a black belt. You'd expect that kind of thing, right? Anyway, so yeah, all told, it was a really good class. I can't remember all of the stuff that we did do in it. But I do recall the stand-up stuff and of course the hip throws. It's kind of hard to forget those when I'm landing on an injured hip, But yeah, like I said, all fights that you get into, they might start standing. They might actually go to the ground, but more than likely they're going to start standing. So you got to have your stand-up down. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down with some music. Going to keep it nice and short on there. And it's funny. It's actually playing in the background right now. Institutionalized 2014 Body Count First Dance here on Coin Metal. And that was Prong with Close the Door. Sorry about that, I let it go just a teeny tiny little bit longer than I wanted to, but oh well. Had a conversation going on in Telegram and wanted to tend to that. Anyway, we're going to talk some mining stuff today. And it seems there's been some changes. And I'm trying to find this one article. There's been this attempt to integrate some sort of developer payment method or like a grant or some sort of funding method for cryptocurrency projects, specifically in this case being Bitcoin Cash. Now, personally, my feeling has always been that if you want to make money on Bitcoin Cash, you should be a fucking miner. That's how you make money on it. Or directly on the coin. This idea that you're going to fund some developers, I'm telling you right now, you can forget about it. The only way that happens is by donations, really. Or by corporate entities. And this is a reality that I think that a lot of naive people in cryptocurrencies seem to fall into. They don't seem to understand that the only reason these projects exist is one of three things. Number one, the belief held by a community that the coin is a positive means for transacting monetary value. And it depends on what their interests are and whatever. But there's a community, an organic community out there that supports it. Number two is they actively go out and ask people for donations. And believe it or not, there are a lot of people out there that want to give you money to help involve them in this space. A lot of them. You don't even need a license to do a lot of it. Or number three, and this is the big one, and it's the one that kind of slips under the radar, and I'll explain how to identify this one a little bit afterward, but it's corporate entities out there that are supplying VC, venture capital. And one of the ways to recognize these individuals in particular is if the way that they're trying to drive or direct the coin or project in question is antithetical to its original version and more akin to either a pre-existing legacy system or a way of doing things that makes it monopolizable by said entity. Personally, I believe that that's the thrust behind Blockstream, that much of their funding has been specifically from banks and people that are already involved in legacy payment systems. And that's kind of easily observable too. I mean, it doesn't take too much scratching around before you start running into AXA and their relationship with the Bilderbergers and all that other stuff. But that's all like conspiratorial fluff. What you have to understand about cryptocurrencies in general is that they kind of flatten the field. You know, it's like on the Bitcoin network, when I'm transacting monetary value from me to somebody else, and I'm doing it via the Bitcoin network, neither the coins nor the network give a shit who I am. They don't care about the color of my skin. They don't care about the fucking sky fairy that I worship. They don't care what continent I'm on, what language I speak, what's between my legs, what genital what gender I affiliate with, or whatever. It doesn't care about any of these things. It's completely agnostic to all of them. It doesn't care if I'm a communist. Doesn't care if I'm a capitalist. Doesn't care if I'm a socialist. Doesn't care if I'm a libertarian. Does not care. Transaction goes through. If it's a valid transaction, it gets included in a block, goes through, done. And it's really important to keep that in mind, because that's how it exists now. But when you start putting a third party in between, and as a matter of fact, I came across something the other day that I wanted to talk about specifically because it addresses this. And let me see if I can find it again. BitPay. I was reading through the legal disclosures on BitPay's website, and I think that's probably the most instructive place to start, because you have to look at what kind of responsibility they're willing to assume or recognize that they have assumed in the service that they're providing. And it's really important to do that, to just evaluate it, because you have to understand where they're viewing things from and what kind of capacity they're undertaking this in. Like I found, I think it's Blue Wallet. At some point in their legal stuff, I could swear it says that it's a experimental project, or that it's an experiment, and losses sometimes happen. I'm sorry, that's just not enough assurance, man. But anyway, I wanted to get into this because this is, I think this is the one that I was looking at. Licenses, ERTs. Ooh. Yeah, see, they're a licensed entity. This is on BitPay. They're licensed via a variety of state entities. Oh. Yeah, I'm looking at the disclosures here, and this is on their licenses page. And this is another important one to take into account, because fact of the matter is, they might not be licensed in your state. But checking it out here, let's see, Alabama, Delaware, District of Columbia, Florida, Georgia. Oh, and by the way, this is on BitPay's website, bitpay.com. And I'm in their licenses. Massachusetts, Mississippi, Nebraska, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Oregon, Washington, Alaska, Florida, New York. Ooh. Here, let's check this one out. For New York, it says, please note the following disclosures associated with virtual currency. 1. Virtual currency is not legal tender, is not backed by the government, and accounts and value balances are not subject to Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation or Securities Investor Protection Corporation protections. In other words, you're on your own there. Legislative and regulatory changes or actions at the state, federal, or international level may adversely affect the use, transfer, exchange, and value of virtual currency. i.e. we do not have a bit license. Yeah, these guys, they don't have a bit license. Just going by this, they're probably operating without a bit license. They're kind of trying to declare themselves legally immune, and they are not. And that's another thing that these people that are providing these services are going to find out. If their customers experience any significant enough material loss of their cryptocurrency, they are going to come after BitPay, and BitPay is not going to be able to use the legalese in these disclosures to hide behind. It's not going to work. You know, the regulations are very, very specific, and I don't know. Sometimes I feel like trying to rent my services as an advisor out, but that comes with its own legal liabilities. And if I were to do so, it would be in like an unofficial or unofficial capacity, like just, you know, private advisor, some shit like that. But anyway, let's look at the terms of use. And I want you to keep in mind some stuff about Bitcoin. Okay, when we first started out with Bitcoin, there were certain traits that were lauded about it. You know, that it's 10 minutes or less. We quit talking about that as soon as we started filling up the blocks. What was another one? Immutability. You know, that they were one-way transactions, man. You put that thing in a block, it's included in a block, that's it. There's no taking it back. Censorship resistance, actually it was censorship proof. Because again, like I was saying before, the network doesn't give a shit about the coins. You know, people talk about fungibility with regard to Bitcoin transactions. They're talking about transactions themselves, and they're talking about them as handled by third parties. They're not talking about peer-to-peer transactions. Anyway, the censorship proof, as it was before, because once the transaction is included in the blockchain, that is it. Every miner on the planet has a copy of that transaction included in a block on its copy of the blockchain, and that's the censorship resistance, immutability of a Bitcoin transaction. And so, and lack of a need for a third party. Absolutely no need for a third party to facilitate a Bitcoin transaction. And it's because miners, i.e. people just like you, supposedly, are out there mining. And that's another thing. It doesn't even matter if it's government funded hashing power or some shit like that. The fact of the matter is that regardless of the entity doing it, the same rules apply. That you have to be dedicating enough hardware, enough electricity, enough bandwidth to it in order to be out competing other people. And it is a competition. It is a race. And so the idea that you're going to legally force people out is complete bullshit. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of these governments are coming to realizations with, is that the more they try to regulate them, the more perverse the expressions are in the market. You know, China tried to harsh down on it. What ended up happening? These people built their own power stations so they could circumvent the grid controls. I mean, give me a break. If the incentive is there, people will cheat. And that's not going to go away. You know, it might turn out that isolation is a good trait to have with regard to Bitcoin mining. And we could start seeing small to mid-size to even large organizations, starting up with one of their only defenses being complete isolation away from other people. And that becomes kind of an issue with regard to delivering and getting rid of mining hardware. However, if you can do it, the physical proximity away from other people kind of makes it a pain in the ass to go after you. And so you can go out, if you can generate your own electricity, things like that. The trick then, though, is getting new miners in. But anyway, the whole reason I went through that is because these are traits of an on-chain Bitcoin transaction. It's immutable, it's one way, it's global, it's peer-to-peer, censorship proof, so on and so forth. And so I got this thing, it's on bitpay.com. It's their wallet's terms of use. Terms updated on January 28th, 2018. This is a binding agreement between BitPay Inc., BitPay or we, and the persons or entity, you or your, using the service, software, or application software. Rights and obligations. BitPay provides the software solely on the terms and conditions set forth in this agreement and on the condition that you accept and comply with them. By using the software, you A. accept this agreement and agree that you are legally bound by its terms, and B. represent and warrant that 1. you are of legal age and to enter into a binding agreement, and number 2. if you are a corporation, governmental organization, or other legal entity, you have the right, power, and authority to enter into this agreement on behalf of the corporation, governmental organization, or other legal entity and bind them to these terms. Actually, no, they can't. This software functions as a free, open source, and multi-signature digital wallet. The software does not constitute an account where we or other third parties serve as financial intermediaries or custodians of your currencies. While the software has undergone beta testing and continues to be improved by feedback from the open source user and developer community, we cannot guarantee that there will not be bugs in the software. You acknowledge that your use of this software is at your own discretion and in compliance with all applicable laws. You are responsible for safekeeping your passwords, private key pairs, PINs, and any other codes you use to access the software. If you lose access to your wallet or your encrypted private keys and you have not separately stored a backup of your wallet and corresponding password, you acknowledge and agree that any cryptocurrency you have associated with that wallet will become inaccessible. All transaction requests are irreversible. The authors of the software, employees, and affiliates of BitPay, copyright holders, and BitPay Inc. cannot retrieve your private keys or passwords if you lose or forget them, and cannot guarantee transaction confirmation as they do not have control over the network. Gift cards. Gift cards sold by BitPay Inc., an authorized and independent reseller of GCs through the software, are subject to the following terms, except as required by law. GCs cannot be transferred for value or redeemed for cash. GCs may be used only for purchases of eligible goods or services at the merchant's website, physical location, or certain of its affiliated websites. For complete terms and conditions, please read the merchant's gift card terms and conditions. GC trademarks and copyrights belong to the merchant owners or its affiliates. All sales are final and no refunds will be provided for any GC. Please contact the GC merchant directly. Disclaimer: the software is provided as is without warranty of any kind, express or implied, including but not limited to the warranties of merchantability, fitness for a particular purpose and non-infringement. In no event shall the authors of the software, employees, and affiliates of BitPay, copyright holders, or BitPay Inc. be liable for any claim, damages, or other liability, whether in action of contract, tort, or otherwise, arising from, out, or of, in connection with the software, or the use, or other dealings in the software. In no event will BitPay or its affiliates or any of its or other respective service providers be liable to you for any third party for any use, interruption, delay, or inability to use the software, lost revenues or profits, delays, interruption, or loss of services, business or goodwill, loss or corruption of data, loss resulting from the system or system service failure, malfunction or shutdown, failure to accurately transfer, read, or transmit information, failure to update or provide correct information, system incompatibility or provision of incorrect compatibility information, or breaches in system security, or for any consequential, incidental, indirect, exemplary, special, or punitive damages, whether arising out of or in connection with this agreement, breach of contract, tort, including negligence, or otherwise, regardless of whether such damages were foreseeable and whether or not we were advised of the possibility of such damages. In other words, you're completely fucked. Intellectual property. We retain all right, title, and interest in and to the content and all of BitPay's brands, logos, and trademarks, including but not limited to BitPay Inc., BitPay Secure Bitcoin Wallet, BitPay Wallet, BitPay App, CoPay, BitPay Prepaid Card, and variations of the wording of the aforementioned brands, logos, and trademarks. Choice of law. This agreement and its application and interpretation shall be governed exclusively by the laws of the state of Georgia, without regard to its conflict of law rules. You consent to the exclusive jurisdiction of the federal and state courts located in or near Atlanta, Georgia, for any dispute arising under this agreement. You know they're practicing a little regulatory arbitrage there. Severability. In the event any court shall declare any section or sections of this agreement invalid or void, such as declaration shall not invalidate the entire agreement, and all other paragraphs of the agreement shall remain in full force and effect. So, if you want to take these guys to court, make sure you're aiming for the jugular. Binding agreement. The terms and provisions of this agreement are binding upon your heirs, successors, assigns, and other representatives. This agreement may be executed in counterparts, each of which shall be considered to be an original, but both of which constitute the same agreement. Okay, whoa. That's significant right there. That little provision, I talked about this a long time ago with the introduction of multi-sig transactions and SegWit in particular. And this part here, this concerns me, where it says this agreement may be executed in counterparts, each of which shall be considered to be an original, but both of which constitute the same agreement. Okay, that means that they could be taking the terms of your agreement here, and your understanding of it is only as they deliver it to you. It's like it's not necessarily the understanding that they're operating under, nor are they assuming legal liability under the one that's something you understand. But with regard to this in particular, I talked about this where the transaction conditions that you could be using through somebody else's software could be saying something like, the terms could say something like a 3 out of 7. or like a 4 out of 7 transaction. You believe it's a 3 out of 5, but it's actually a 4 out of 7, and they have 2 additional keys, right? Or 1 additional key. And so when it comes down to them wanting to exercise something due to a legal action or something like that, they have that additional key that you have no knowledge of, but because you agreed to this right here, it could be considered part of the same contract that you had originally signed up for, but not necessarily the one that you were under the understanding that you were signing up for. Anyway, continue. You assume any and all risks associated with the use of this software. We reserve the right to modify this agreement from time to time, meaning they can change any of the terms at their discretion. Merchant terms of use. And you know what? There's something specific that I wanted to get into here. Right here. I think it is. Oh, yes. Here it is. Now, one of the reasons to use cryptocurrencies is the inability of a government or other corporate entity to tell you that you can't. You know, if you wanted to buy opium on Silk Road 8, and you would only accept it from somebody in Afghanistan, somebody that grows the shit. If you were using this wallet in particular, you would not be able to conduct that transaction because it would violate the terms of use of this wallet. So, basically I'm saying that by using this wallet, you take away one, if not more, of the most significant reasons to be using cryptocurrencies opposed to a conventional payment method. But here it is. So representation and warranties, section 3.4. Use of the services is subject to the laws and regulations of the United States regarding the prevention of terrorist financing and anti-money laundering. You agree and acknowledge that your use of these services would and will comport with such laws and regulations, including without limitation the sanctions programs administered by the Office of Foreign Assets Control of the United States Department of Treasury. Meaning if you wanted to give money to one of your friends or family members in Venezuela, you could not use this wallet. Continuing on. Or at least not to conduct that transaction. Your use of these services is also subject to the following important restrictions. A. You are at least 18 years of age or older and have the right and power to and contractual capacity to agree to those terms. Okay, that immediately puts this thing at a disadvantage to Dogecoin. Because the Dogecoin wallet don't give a fuck how old you are. Continuing on. B. Your use of the services will not contravene any applicable international, federal, state, or local law or regulation, including applicable tax laws and regulations. So, if you don't want to include Uncle Sam in your every transaction, or the IRS, or your state taxing authorities, if you don't want to include those entities, you probably shouldn't use this wallet. Continuing on. C. Your use of the services will not relate to the following prohibited activities. 1. The sale of narcotics, research chemicals, or any controlled substances. 2. Sales of cash or cash equivalents, including terms used for speculation or hedging purposes, such as derivatives, and the sale or trade of cryptocurrencies. 3. Items that infringe or violate any intellectual property rights, such as copyrights, trademarks, trade secrets, or patents. 4. Ammunition, firearms, explosives, including fireworks or weapons regulated under applicable law or as determined by us. Or 5. Transactions that show the personal information of third parties in violation of applicable law. 6. Transactions that support pyramid, Ponzi, or other get-rich-quick schemes. 7. Transactions that are related to cloud mining. Can you believe that shit? These people want to stop you from cloud mining. Fuck you. 8. Provide credit repair or debt settlement services. Let's see. 9. Any services which compete with BitPay. 10. Explicit sexual content. Goddamn, you can't even sell fucking video cam feeds to people of you having sex and use BitPay as your receptacle for your payments. Fuck these people. 11. Sales of kratom or nootropics. Oh my god, you can't even buy brain vitamins with this shit. D. If your use of the services relates to one of the following restricted activities, your activities are subject to internal review, and you're only allowed to transact when expressly authorized by BitPay in writing. Number 1, engaged in foreign exchange money service businesses activities as defined by the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network of the United States Department of the Treasury or e-wallets. 2, engaged in selling cryptocurrency mining hardware. Oh my god, they want to stop you from selling mining hardware. Fuck these people. 3, providing currency exchange services. 4, transactions that are associated with purchases of annuities or lottery contracts, layaway systems, banking, offshore banking, offshore banking, transactions to finance, investing, investment-related products, or number 5, transactions that involve gambling or any other activity with any entry fee and a prize, including but not limited to casino games, sports betting, horse or greyhound racing, lottery tickets, or other ventures that facilitate gambling and sweepstakes unless you have obtained our prior written approval, and you and your customers are located exclusively in jurisdictions where such activities are permitted by law. 3.5. Our right to reject. We reserve the right to decline to process a sale if we reasonably believe that it violates these terms or would expose you or other merchants, purchasers, or other parties to harm. If we reasonably suspect that your BitPay account has been used for an illegal purpose, you authorize us to share information about you, your BitPay account, and your account activity with law enforcement. This is another real good one. 3.6. Our right to inspect. We may ask for permission to inspect your business location in connection with your use of the services or documentation or evidence to support specific transactions. If you refuse our request, we may suspend or terminate your BitPay account. Oh, man. So, yeah. Here's a good one. Where was it? Number 5, how we collect, use, and share information. In order to provide services, we may share information about you and your BitPay account with third parties, including but not limited to your bank and purchasers. These fucking people. So basically, you can read through this and understand that if you want to use cryptocurrencies in the same exact way that you use your Visa card or your MasterCard or your bank ATM, that's exactly what you're signing up for with this. And these people at one point or another are going to be brought under some sort of regulatory scrutiny. I can almost guarantee it. I'm looking at their website here, and I would be willing to bet you if they're not already owned by a regulated entity, they will be. They'll either be sued to the point where, they have to sell, or just go bankrupt and out of business. Because I can see where they're assuming a lot of liability here, but they think that they can just divest themselves of it with a few words in this fucking contract. Oh, you signed it! You signed it! I mean, they did a South Park episode about this. And literally, this is the kind of self-fucking that they're asking you to sign up for. It's fucking disgusting. Anyway, I did want to check one thing out here before we close out and get into some music again. It's minor fees. Now, listen really closely here. Because this is one of the points where I keep telling people that Lightning will fail. But keep this in mind. They're covering their ass for a reason, and this is it. Cryptocurrency transactions may require a minor fee. These minor fees are automatically created by the purchaser's wallet and sent to the miner. These minor fees are not BitPay fees. The minor fees paid to the network are not returned when a refund is executed. If a purchaser would like to learn more about the applicable fees, please view our payment fee details. We reserve the right to change our fee structure and pricing. Your continued use of the services after we notify you of changes in our fees constitutes your acceptance of such change. Current pricing information is provided on BitPay website, blah, blah, blah. Let's look at the payment fee details here. What fees will I pay when I pay a BitPay merchant with Bitcoin or load the BitPay card? Processing fee. BitPay charges a 1% processing fee to BitPay merchants. Merchants may choose to pass the fee on to the buyer. Fees for Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash BitPay invoices. Minor fees. Payment protocol payments require that you send an appropriate minor fee with your payment. Minor fees are given to the miner that adds the transaction to the blockchain. These minor fees are not BitPay fees. A higher minor fee increases the likelihood that your transaction will confirm more quickly. A simple way to ensure that any transaction includes an appropriate fee is to adjust your wallet settings to include a dynamically calculated fee. The BitPay wallet includes this setting option, which will help ensure that your transaction confirms even during high network traffic. Let's see here. Network cost. When you pay a BitPay invoice, your payment goes to a BitPay address. We pay network-based minor fees, just like you send to BTC or BCH, to move invoice payments to combine them for processing. This is called a UTXO sweep, unspent transaction output sweep. BitPay uses the network cost fee for the UTXO sweep, so it is not returned with refunds. Let's see here. Here we go. Minor fees are variable costs for BitPay based on network conditions. This means the network cost fee also changes to reflect network conditions. Please read our original post about why we introduced the network cost in February 2017. Let's see here. So anyway, I wanted to cover that because I was hoping that they would disclose something to the fact that you might be pressured into using your Bitcoin off-chain, specifically because they're doing it so on-chain will be way too expensive. And they did talk about combining your transaction with others, and that's exactly what they're talking about to some extent. But yeah, I believe that this is one of those entities that's going to end up getting their asses sued. And there are several out there, and most of them are operating in the off-chain space and in developing on that side of things. And like I said, I've always felt that that's basically a boondoggle, and that they'll end up running into a big old wall at one point or another. But anyway, I did want to cover this one more thing before we get back into music here, and it's on Coindesk.com. Ethereum's ProgPow call features frustration, but little progress. And this is on March 6, 2020 at 8 UTC or 20 UTC. And this is by William Foxley, so yes, penis. ProgPow is still just a proposal. The controversial proposed change to Ethereum's mining algorithm failed to change status after meeting resistance during Friday's core developers call. Ethereum hard fork coordinator James Hancock and said ProgPow will not be included on the hard fork schedule going forward. During the call, opponents of the long-discussed Ethereum improvement proposal voiced their frustrations. Quote, ProgPow people are a bunch of profit-seeking miners lobbying the core dev political committee to get what they want. Full stop, said SpankChain CEO and Moloch DAO co-founder Amin Soleimani. Quote, a hard fork is not just a technical process, said Martin Koppelman, founder of open finance startup Gnosis. A hard fork means creating a narrative around it, convincing 20,000 people at the same time that this is the best thing to do right now. Matt Luogo, founder of crypto venture studio Thesis, joined Soleimani and Koppelman in voicing his concerns. Luogo compared current ProgPow transition tensions to 2017's Bitcoin BTC civil wars, which led to the creation of Bitcoin Cash. Tweaking Ethereum hash algorithm isn't quite worth a chain split, he said. The latest. As Coindesk previously reported, ProgPow's code was released in 2018 as a replacement to the current ETH mining algorithm. The code was proposed as a remedy to an emerging trend of mining power centralization around ASIC-wielding firms. Some Ethereum community members viewed this trend as dangerous to the community and an unfair advantage against less capital-endowed miners who typically use GPU-based rigs. The concern can also be found in other cryptocurrency circles, notably with Monero, which has built-in code changes every few months to disincentivize ASIC mining. ProgPow was nearly merged into Ethereum in January 2019, but failed at the 11th hour due to third-party audits exposing key vulnerabilities. Earlier last month, ProgPow popped back into the conversation as a hard fork candidate. As of Friday, the EIP has been left on, quote, final status, but has yet to receive core developer support to be executed as a major code change. For and against. The common anti-ProgPow argument centers around the transition to ETH 2.0 and its new proof-of-stake consensus algorithm. Under POS, mining Ether will become a thing of the past. ProgPow antagonists think addressing the current proof-of-work chain when the community is nearing its major switch to proof-of-stake is superfluous, if not dangerous. Quote, we should focus on proof-of-stake and communicating the transition to proof-of-stake, where mining rewards are decreased over time, said Koppelman. That alone would prevent people from doing large investments in 6 or 8 gigabyte ASICs. Pro-ProgPow members represented Friday's call by Christy Leigh Minehan, a algorithm developer who helped create ProgPow, a cryptocurrency educator Michael Carter, say that the Ethereum network is liable to be captured by ASIC miners. Minahan said GPU mining is a common way for people to enter the Ethereum community. Hobbyists will be walled off from the Ethereum garden if an algorithm change isn't made, she said. Minahan also pointed out a forthcoming study from Coinmetrics on so-called nonce patterns in Ethereum mining. In crypto mining, machines look for a nonce or a specific golden number to create a block and receive a coin reward. In some situations, you can tell what proportion of a network is running a certain model of mining rig depending on the nonce patterns guessed by the machines. Minahan said that the study from Coinmetrics suggests that 40% of the Ethereum network is running on Bitmain's Antminer E3 miner, an ASIC. Unfortunately, the E3 will become obsolete in the next few months, said Minahan and Carter, alluding to a recent report from Mining Pool to miners. Minahan and Carter say that they fear a more powerful ASIC miner will replace the E3, creating a tech cycle that iPhone users are quite familiar with: planned obsolescence. Cornering the network into changing products every time Bitmain produces a new mining rig undercuts the network's security, they said. No, it doesn't. This fear becomes even more pressing given the size of Ethereum's network, said Starkware product manager Louis Guthman. Creating a GPU-friendly Ethereum is good for the network's robustness, he said. A compromise between the two camps was also given screen time on the call. Authored by Ben DeFrancisco, founder of software advisor Scopelift, this middle path would make ProgPow a testnet for the time being. After further audits, the code would be issued as an emergency backup in the case of, quote, an ASIC attack on the current Ethash algorithm. What an ASIC attack is remains unknown. Ethereum developer Tim Biko pointed out, tweeting here, having a social agreement within the community that we will activate ProgPow on the network if there is a clear signal of an ASIC attack on the network. And Tim says he highlights some of the weaknesses of his proposal. It's not clear what an ASIC attack is, but if we knew this, we could just hard code it into the clients. This opens the door to debate and keeps ProgPow as a deterrent. TLDR. As of now, nothing has been decided. Core developers on the call said they feel the community is fairly anti-ProgPow. Without this support, a change cannot be implemented even if perceived as a net benefit to the network. As the call closed, DeFrancisco pointed out that both parties had begun talking past each other, though there does seem to be agreement on one thing: nobody wants a contentious chain split. Well, I'll tell you what, that's what you're going to fucking get if you keep pressing for a changeover to proof of stake with Ethereum. People signed up for it as a proof of work coin. Trying to change it midstream is like, putting everybody in the air in a 747 and then saying, all right, we're going to change this over to a Falcon 1 and we're going to do it while we're in mid-flight and y'all are just going to have to deal with it. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And the developers that keep saying, oh, we need to have a compromise so that we can transition over to proof of... Yeah, fuck you! If the network wanted to be proof of stake, it would have been proof of stake 2 years ago. As a matter of fact, they would have been able to sell Ethereum as proof of stake initially because there was a lot more proof of stake coins out there at the time, and everything would have been fine. But the problem is that model had already failed. It had already failed multiple times during the period between 2014 and 2016, where people thought that, oh, we're going to be the end-all be-all. and everybody's going to be able to do everything on our network. And through one way or another, the lack of support, the lack of community support with actual hardware, electricity, and bandwidth to support those projects caused them to die. The focus on the vast majority of these projects is taking what a proof-of-work network does and concentrating it down to a limited number of trusted parties. That's the whole focus of them. Invariably, every single one of them is going to fail because they're collapsing the interest pool down to a tiny number of people whose sole responsibility is to maintain the integrity of the network and the validity of the coin, right? Well, what happens when they fail? You signed up for it, you took the risk. They'll show you their terms of service and say, oh yeah, sorry, you signed up for this as is, and you dealt with it, and so you deal with it. And you better hope that you've got a half-decent judge that's going to see through the fact that the terms of service as laid out there are I would say that there's not any regulatory jurisdictions. I mean, where they're actually like applying regulations on transactions and financial services where that thing would pass muster. Because they're basically just saying, give us your money. If you can't get it back, too fucking bad. I mean, really, you might as well just hand your money to a bum, and hope that the next time you see that bum, you're going to be able to get your money back from him. That they haven't pissed it away on alcohol or drugs or some shit. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. And as far as where to go, I think we need a little bit of Static X. Push It, here on Coin Metal. And that was Machine Head with Nation on Fire. And so, next up, I got this thing here. It's on coinspice.io. Author of the Bitcoin Cash IFP vows to vote against it using personal hash in opposition. And this is by Edward Colso. So yes, well, wait a minute, hold on. Let's check something out here really quick. It says C. I want to make sure. Blah, 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 blah. Kelso. Blah, 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 blah. He. Yes. So, yes. Penis. Let's see here. Author of the Bitcoin Cash IFP vows to vote against it. According to China-based journalist Cindy Wang, Zhang Zhao said in an AMA held by BTC123.com tonight that IFP will not be implemented as it's confronted with great community opposition, citing notable opposition from the likes of Bitcoin.com executive chairman Roger Ver. Wang continued, will use his personal hash rate to vote no in case somebody wants to activate IFP. At press time, Wang also posted her scoop to the popular subreddit r/BTC. Comments in response to Zhao's change of heart seemed to be of a grateful tone. Signs the IFP was doomed appeared almost immediately after its proposal, and Zhao's subsequent AMA reaction then revealed a community perplexed by the IFP's coming seemingly out of nowhere. Though sympathetic to its stated goal of supporting protocol developers, outrage at its 12.5% redirection of the BCH Coinbase block rewards to an ill-defined Hong Kong corporation, and bewilderment at the then thought complicity of Ver, Jihan Wu of Bitmain, and Hypo Yang of Via BTC, Let's see, no IFP, no split, kudos to blah blah blah, and Cindy Wang. Zhao would later revise his IFP idea, casting the block reward reduction or redirection downward toward a more palpable 5%, noting community opposition and assuring dissenting voices would have their say before anything was formally decided. The lead reference, Bitcoin Cash Implementation Client, Bitcoin ABC, further revised the IFP, coding it into the May 15, 2020 scheduled upgrade, and including whitelisted addresses to itself, BCHD, Electron Cash, and General Fund, and a General Fund. The first developer meeting post-IFP controversies found ABC lead developer Emery Sachet defending the IFP and its inclusion in the nearing upgrade to be a mere option requested by the likes of Zhao. The goings-on back and forth machinations buoyed IFP opposition. One tentative backer, such as Bitcoin.com, came out against it, and well-respected developers also voiced their disapproval. The result so far has been twofold. Alternative ways of funding not hard-coded into the Bitcoin Cash protocol are being worked on, and a competing reference client, the Bitcoin Cash node, is in quick development, hoping to replace ABC altogether. That's interesting. Let's see here. See if there's any replies to this. Yeah, so that's an interesting development where people are just saying, hey, these guys are obviously developing towards an end that we don't like, so we're just going to fucking develop our own client. And if people like it better than this ABC business, then they'll go to it. And that's generally how things are run in cryptocurrencies, and there really isn't any other way around it. You know, if there's some sort of change that you want introduced, or some BIP that you want support flagged for, then you've got to dedicate the fucking hardware, electricity, and bandwidth to it. Nobody else can do that for you. You know, you have to back yourself up. You have to back up your will on these networks. And you know, by watching other participants in this space, we can kind of figure out who's really got their interests in heart and who's willing to sacrifice the interests of other people in the pursuit of those own interests. And we can disclude those people from our commerce altogether. And this is one of the aspects of choice that I think that a lot of people kind of discount. You know, it's like with regard to this Steemit thing. If there is enough organic support for Steemit, they will overpower and they will take the fucking network back. That's all there is to it. You know, it's the same thing with any kind of hard fork that would happen with any coin. Is if there's not enough organic support for the changes that are made on a coin or for the current implementation of a coin, then it will fucking change to what the majority hash rate is willing to support. And that's all there is to it. You know, it's one of the reasons why I cast so many dispersions against, you know, off-chain scaling and whatnot, because these transactions that they're building all of this crap on are dependent upon being able to be considered valid when they close. You know, if there's some major alteration in the protocol because of a network takeover, you're completely fucked. You know, if you didn't exercise the appropriate flags when you establish the payment channel or whatever, you're completely fucked. Especially if they didn't consider backwards compatibility, and like you've got it in a format that all of a sudden they don't support. Oh, it's fucked. And I mean, there have already been efforts, and you can see it in the IP of certain products, in certain projects rather, that they were talking about including their own kind of identifying marker in transactions, and to my mind, this is to make sure that they're including only their transactions, and probably even monitoring the network to make sure that only their transactions get included within a block. And that this is something that the people that were behind replaced by fee were not really thinking about, or they were really thinking about it and just not bothering to indicate to anybody else that that was the primary focus of introducing it. You know, I think we are going to see that particular tweak on the incentive isn't really all that wonderful. That what will end up happening is that most people will be priced out of transacting directly on the blockchain. I've predicted that multiple times before, and I stand by that prediction because we have seen the transaction fees for the Bitcoin network get so high that it was unusable. And if there were some on-ramps directly onto the Lightning network from that, then it probably would have seen a bit more adoption. But I think that too many people saw what it was and really weren't all about that. Anyway, it's not that it was actually available at the time. It was just kind of a warning shot that showing you, hey, this is what you have to put up with if we stick with 1 megabyte blocks. Anyway, I got this thing. It's on cryptobriefing.com. Bitcoin Cash will avoid chain split as mining tax dies. And this is by Ashwath Balakrishnan and I think Penis? Check and verify. Yes, Penis. Bitcoin Cash is on track to avert a coin split after a proposal that would force miners to contribute part of their earnings to BCH development loses critical support. Reality check for Bitcoin Cash miners. After Bitcoin ABC, the dominant Bitcoin Cash node client, announced they are hard-coding the proposal meant for a miner tax in their next upgrade, Jiang Zhao, CEO of BTC.top, the original proposer of the tax, said that he would vote against the proposal using his personal hash power of 3,500 petahashes per second, which represents about 2.9% of the network hash rate at press time. The proposal was set to go live if 66% of the network hash power voted for it. Roger Ver and other high-profile mining groups were listed as supporters. Some of these initial supporters wavered after public backlash. For example, Roger Ver later contested the claim that he signed his support, saying he was never contacted about the issue. Bitcoin Cash figurehead later went on to publicly oppose the tax, saying the potential for a community schism was too high. Now, after seeing the division in the Bitcoin Cash's community, Zhao seems to have accepted that this proposal will do more harm than good. Taxing miners a portion of their block reward was meant to fund developers and improve Bitcoin Cash's infrastructure. Instead, the proposal turned into the biggest catalyst for the community to rally since the Bitcoin SV fork. It is expected that other big miners will take note of the loss of support and reject the proposal, keeping the community intact. What happens to Bitcoin ABC? Bitcoin ABC declared support for the proposal and went on to announce that the upgrade would be included in their latest release. It has been confirmed that the new version of the client supporting the miner tax has already been released, said Bitcoin ABC. The mining tax was set to be implemented only after a majority of hash power voted for it, so the new client upgrade only activates the funding proposal if the requisite amount of hashing power votes for it. Nodes had the option of switching from Bitcoin ABC to Bitcoin Unlimited, a node client that vehemently opposed the proposal from the beginning. Data shows that support for Bitcoin ABC client has been quickly trending down for years, and its latest stance may accelerate the decline. Going forward, when the proposal fails, it is expected that Bitcoin ABC will lose support, pushing Bitcoin Unlimited's client to gain a majority share over the network. This would result in a conclusive defeat for the miner tax. I think that it will ultimately fail, and because of what I mentioned before, if you want to get paid in Bitcoin Cash, be a miner. Those are the people that get paid in Bitcoin Cash. Those are the people that get paid to support the network, not developers. And that was always the intention with this space. It wasn't that experts were going to be able to carve out their little niche and put up their little guard posts and say, you got to put money in my hand or you can't do it. It wasn't set up for that. It was never intended for that. Now, I don't think that any kind of claim to superiority will actually come into any kind of vogue. I believe that the network decides for itself, and if it isn't in a miner's interest to do it, they won't do it. I just wish more of you were miners so that more of you were weighing in on that decision. Anyway, extending a little bit further outward, I wanted to touch back on this because this is a growing trend. And I don't know if it's because they think that finally they can regulate this space to the extent that they feel is necessary, or at least felt was necessary. I'm not sure. But what I do think is that it's a good sign, and that ultimately it'll lead to some good things. But we're going to have to get through some more fires, of course, before then. Anyway, this is on Coinspice.io. My apologies there. South Korea legalizes crypto. Nike and Macy's go blockchain. NY power company mining Bitcoin. And this is by Linzard. Who the hell is Linzard? Let's give it a wing, give it a whirl, check it out. Yes, penis. And this is authored March 6th, 2020. South Korea legalizes cryptocurrencies. South Korea has taken a definitive step in legalizing cryptocurrencies, including them in the new amendment to the Act on Reporting and Use of Financial Information. With the new rules now in place, all cryptocurrency-related businesses and institutions like exchanges, wallet providers, and ICOs will have to get a real-name partnership with a bank that will issue accounts to every user to minimize the risk of using the system to launder money. Yeah, that's not going to work. Exchanges from South Korea will also have to comply with the Korean Internet Security Agency standards to keep information from customers safe. Giant brands like Nike and Macy's are teaming up to use a blockchain system to control their supply chain that will make them save billions of dollars annually. It's not going to work. The project, codenamed CHIP, Chain Integration Project, combines the usage of RFID tags and the Hyperledger Fabric blockchain to share information from the coin supply, the supply chain, without giving ownership of it. The proof of concept included several big retail stores such as Nike, Macy's, Kohl's, Walmart, and FedEx. The companies expect to solve the counterfeiting problem without human involvement using this solution. Yeah, it's not going to work. Here we go. Power plant in New York runs its own mining operation. I caught this earlier, and I thought this was really cool. But then again, not so cool. Atlas Holdings LLC, a private equity firm based in Greenwich, New York, found a way of combining power and cryptocurrency by installing a mining facility inside the Greenwich power plant in Dresden, New York. The mining ASICs were able to run at, quote, off-the-meter power prices, paying just for the production of the gas at the plant that produces 106 megawatts of each, of which 15 will be used to power the mining operation. Tim Rainey, CFO at Greenwich, declared they have, quote, a unique position in the whole mining segment, letting them make money in down markets, so we're available to catch the upside of volatile price swings. Oh, these guys are funny. Yeah, and I just wanted to leave it at that. I didn't want to touch that one, honestly, but the fact that it was there, we had to read it. Anyway, I think that's really interesting. You know, we've seen that happen before, and what I would be willing to bet is that somebody set some miners up there, they caught them, and they said, look, dude, we made so much fucking money when that thing went to $20,000 that it would probably behoove us if we were to expand this operation so that we were making more money. and everybody looked at what they made and they said, that's a really good idea. You know, we should get behind that. And they refrained from prosecuting them for stealing electricity. However, this is going to draw them into conflict with other people getting electricity from them, because they're basically giving themselves an unfair advantage by not charging themselves for the electricity or giving themselves a special rate for it. Now, I could see a point where this might lead to the deregulation of electricity production, and I really think that that's necessary moving ahead into the future, is that there are hundreds of us, if not thousands of us, if not hundreds of thousands of us, perhaps even millions of us, that own enough property or own property that is adjacent to some sort of natural means of producing electricity, whether it be wind or solar or hydro, that we could be producing free or almost free electricity and putting that into the grid. Now, what that will do, I think, is as electricity gets cheaper in your particular vicinity, that miners will be incentivized to come to your area. And as that happens, the economic activity within your area will also increase because they'll have money to spend. But this is one of many points where I think that we will see a significant amount of deregulation, because there's only so much expansion that we'll be able to do within the current regulatory frameworks that they're intending to impose on this space. And they're going to see really quick where the attempted market containment via regulation is actually costing us more money than anything. It's inhibiting economic activity that they themselves could be enriching themselves off of. You know, and so when that comes down to them, and it will come down to them, you know, you can't hide all of a sudden, you know, all of a sudden, all of the stuff that used to be shipped to America from China via Amazon sales aren't actually coming to the United States, and not because we don't want the orders, not because the demand isn't there, but because the people in China want it more and they're willing to pay a little bit more for it. And they have the money because they've been mining and they've been selling those fucking coins to everybody, and we've been paying for them. You know, there's only so long, I believe, that governments will be willing to accept that disparity that they themselves have presented to themselves. They'll be saying, why aren't we allowing ourselves to make this money? I mean, there's always the fun aspect of control. You keep in control of everything. Yeah, control. But when that control is impoverishing you, not just the people that you're imposing it on, but impoverishing you and putting you in a negative market position, are you going to want to maintain it? If you were in control of it, would you want to maintain it? Fuck no! If you thought you could make 10 times what you're currently making, if you just let up the reins that you yourselves are holding, wouldn't you be motivated to do it? Fuck yeah. I would. I'd drop it, man. I'd be like, give me that money. Give me that paper. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. And, I hardly ever play this song because most of the rest of the album is not up to par to it. But it's because they're not necessarily a metal band. Although they did start off as a punk band, and they have worked with metal bands in the interim. Here it is, Beastie Boys, Sabotage, here on Coin Metal. And that was Faith No More with Falling to Pieces. And it is with that I'd like to close this episode out. Thank you very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support. We will be back again on Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so until then, I want y'all to trade safe. Do your homework.